Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the pro wrestling world says goodbye to the legendary and iconic John Cena. John Cena hangs up his Reebok pumps tonight in just a few hours. We are down to our final, 4 or 5 hours of John Cena's in-ring career as he heads into Saturday night's main event tonight in Washington, D.C., in front of a house of about 19,000 to wrestle his final ever match against Gunther. And unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say this, I'm not going to be here tonight to see his final match. I'm very bummed out about that, but tonight is one of the busiest nights of the year for holiday parties at work, and I kind of had a feeling that this was going to be a tough night for me to skip, and I was probably not going to be available for John Cena's final match tonight. But I take comfort in knowing that I was live in the building at Petco Park a couple of weeks ago at Survivor Series to see John Cena's second to final in-ring match as he lost the Intercontinental Championship to Dominic. So I felt very, very proud and happy that I was there for that, but very bummed out that I'm going to be missing this match tonight. But it is podcast day, and I still wanted to come up and do a podcast. So this is still going to be our Saturday wingy like we normally do, but it's going to be really focusing heavily on John Cena. We're just going to share some of our final thoughts and memories of his career and everything that he brought and contributed to pro wrestling ahead of tonight's big match. And we'll also get into some wrestling news. We'll talk about some of the highlights of Raw and Dynamite and last night's SmackDown as well. But we're going to focus mostly on just sharing our John Cena memories as we head into now this final match. It's been about a year and a half since John Cena announced his retirement. I think he did so in the summer of 2024 at Money in the Bank. And he said 2025 will be his retirement run. Hasn't been a great one, mostly because of how many disappointments we had. But man, there were still some great moments. That iconic heel turn at Elimination Chamber, and even his match with Cody that kind of turned him back into a babyface, I think were big standout moments and should be looked at as positives. But it's how they followed up with the heel turn that I think really disappointed a lot of fans. And if it was up to me in retrospect, hindsight being 2020, if I could do it all again, I would have just not done the heel turn at all. I think it's really weird that you have this odd John Cena heel turn plunked right into the final 11 months of his career. Just seems weird. It would have been great if they would have followed through with it and we would have gotten more Rock, and Elimination Chamber would have been more than just a viral moment, and they actually had plans to follow through with what could have been the greatest heel turn of all time, and they dropped the ball big time. And a lot of fans were kind of just turned off and disappointed by how John Cena's retirement year is going. But now that we've gotten to the end of it, he finished very, very strong, winning the Intercontinental Championship, having that little mini feud with Dom, having some nice moments with the fans, with Cody Rhodes over these last few months, and now he heads into his final match against Gunther, and Gunther is vowing to tap him out tonight. So we will be getting into Saturday night's main event predictions. This podcast is basically going to end about an hour before the show goes live. So this is kind of last minute here, but we're going to kind of talk about all of it, and we are going to predict the show at the very end here, really, really last minute. But we are going to be here tomorrow. I just want to let you guys know right away that we are going to be here tomorrow afternoon. Another doubleheader scheduled for tomorrow because on Sundays we do our classic watch-alongs as we do every week. But we are going to be here before the classic watch-along. We're going to go live the same time we went live here today at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 Pacific to review Saturday night's main event. I will be here to give you my full thoughts on John Cena's final match and the entire show because we have some really good matches scheduled for tonight as well. Cody Rhodes and Obafemi and Bayley and Sol Ruca is going to be a good one, not to mention the tag team title match. So there's a lot of good matches on tap tonight, but of course, John Cena's final match, which will, of course, be closing out the show. That's what I'm really excited to see and talk about tomorrow. So tonight when I get home from work, I'm probably going to watch the show with Elizabeth, and we're going to take in John Cena's final match together, and then we will be up here tomorrow afternoon, and I will give you my full thoughts on his match and review the whole show. And I will also be eyeballing the match tonight while I'm at work. I'll be looking at social media, so feel free to send me your thoughts, your comments, your updates on everything that's going on with Saturday night's main event. I'll be happy to read them because I want to keep my eye on what's going on with John Cena. So really excited to come up here again tomorrow and talk about what we're going to see tonight in his final match. And also should let you guys know that tomorrow night's classic pay-per-view watch-along is going to be In Your House, D-Generation X from December of 1997. We're going to be watching that one tomorrow at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, right after the John Cena final match review. So big weekend, of course. We're here for the podcast, and we have a doubleheader tomorrow. That's what is on tap for the weekend. We're going to play Monday by ear. I'm not really sure what I have going on Monday yet, so we might be up here for a watch-along. We might be up here for a review for Raw, or we might be up here for nothing. I'm not really sure yet, so just stay tuned to the channel, and I'll let you guys know what we have planned for Monday if we have anything planned at all. But like I said, today we're going to be talking about John Cena, talking about his match tonight with Gunther, maybe giving some thoughts and memories on his career. I'm going to roll off a few of my my favorite John Cena matches, my favorite John Cena moments, things like that, and you guys can tribute the man yourself in the chat there. If you want to offer your memories of him or anything like that in the chat, please make sure you mention it, and we'll get to all the super chats and all that today as well. And yeah, this is it. This is kind of a significant day. It's been, 23 years since John Cena debuted. I think it was late 2002 at some time, right? It was when he made that debut against Kurt Angle. So we're talking nearly a quarter century of John Cena in the WWE. And in 2005 is when he kind of became a little closer to the character we see now. So it's really been about 20 years, or maybe a little bit more, of John Cena, being that 2-decade-long babyface. And then, of course, he turned heel at the very, very end this year, right before he retired, before returning to his original persona of the good guy babyface. And that's what we've all remembered John Cena for the past 20 years. And it's been an amazing career. And I think a lot of fans tonight are going to be in their feelings, with his final match against Gunther. It's going to be very emotional. At least I'm hoping that it is. There was a lot of worry and concern earlier on in the week that John Cena and Gunther might not be closing the show. There was some word that they might be opening the show. But John Cena's been doing the media rounds, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I believe it was on Pat McAfee. He did so many shows. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was Pat McAfee yesterday, where he basically confirmed that he will be going on last, which he needs to. I think it would be a silly idea to have Gunther and John Cena go on first. Some people have pointed out that, that would be a throwback to the old school days of Saturday night's main event when the big matches happened first. Yeah, but back then the show was airing at 11:30 at night, and if you waited until the end of the show, then the Hogan match would be coming on at almost 1 o'clock in the morning. So that just wasn't going to work. The big matches came on first because the show aired so late. In the modern version of Saturday night's main event, you don't have that problem. So I think to burn out your audience emotionally and put them through that emotion to open the show and then have to watch 3 matches after that would not be good. It's not what you want to do. And luckily, it sounds like they are not doing that. So John Cena will be closing the show like he should be doing this evening with Gunther, because that is definitely a main event match. There has never been a more obvious main event ever in pro wrestling history than the one that we have tonight with Gunther and John Cena. They absolutely need to close, and I'm hoping they do. Will John Cena win or lose? Like I said, we'll be getting into our predictions here in a little bit. I honestly think that I will be happy as a wrestling fan if it goes either way. I think it would be very, very fitting if Gunther tapped out John Cena. Tapped him out like he said he would, and John Cena, who has never given up in his career as a babyface. I know he gave up a couple of times as a heel to like Benoit and Angle, but is the icon of John Cena that we've come to know ever since becoming that babyface in 2005. He has never given up. It's been all on his t-shirts. It's been part of his catchphrase and his shtick. And if he were to give up and tap out in his final match, I think that would be incredibly fitting and poetic if he did that. Where if you look at the other side of the coin, it would be poetic and fitting if he had one final Super Cena moment. I actually wouldn't be upset if he beat Gunther. It wouldn't matter. Gunther's a made man. He can bounce back from this. And plus, there's a whole line of people that Gunther could still retire if he doesn't retire John Cena. And if they do turn Gunther into the legend killer or the retirement guy, I would like John Cena to be the one guy that he couldn't do it to. You know, where Cena wins his final match LOL, Cena wins, or Cena wins, LOL, Super Cena. You know, when Gunther's got him choked out and dead, laying in a pool of his own fucking blood and spit and piss, he still comes back and wins the match. I think it would be kind of fun and endearing to watch him do that one final time, and it wouldn't upset me. I wouldn't be like, that's not the right thing to do. Tonight I don't care. I just want the match to be memorable. I want the fans to get the closure they want. I want Cena to get the closure they want, and I hope tonight goes off well to where we're not left scratching our heads, or we're not left feeling like they should have done more. You know, the way Goldberg's retirement was botched, which I didn't care about because I don't like Goldberg, but the way that whole thing went down, I want Cena's to be much, much more elaborate, much more organized. Apparently they have no hard out tonight, so they can go as long as they need to give John Cena that proper time. And then after the match, you know, if he loses, they're going to have to get Gunther out of there, and Cena's going to have some moment with the crowd, I would assume, where if Cena wins, he's also going to have the moment with the crowd. So I think either way, John Cena needs to be the last thing that we see on the show tonight, is John Cena's face. That's it. So I would have really been bummed out if Cena and Gunther opened, and then in the main event after the Cody match, Cody calls Cena back out for a curtain call, and you have Cody and Cena. You know, I don't need any of that. I just think Gunther and Cena should be last, and if Cena loses and does get choked out, then when he comes to, then he needs to have that moment with the fans. And if it does turn out to be a chokeout finish or whatever, I'm curious if Cena's going to tap out or if he's going to pass out. And again, I'm not going to have, I'm looking at those three options. Cena taps out, Cena passes out, or LOL, Cena wins. Honestly, I don't have a preference. I'm fine with whatever they do there. You know, John Cena's been repeating over and over that they're the ones that make the decisions. WWE is deciding what he's going to do, who he's going to face, and he just does it. He's been kind of planting that seed a lot, which makes me wonder if he might actually win his last match. And that way, when he does media in the future, he can say, WWE wanted me to win, so I went out there and won. I feel like he's almost laying the groundwork for that just in case. He's making sure the fans know that they're the ones calling the shots. Maybe he's protecting himself. Maybe he secretly wants to win his final match. I think I should go out on top. I think I've done enough. I should go out on top. You know, and then he can say that WWE wanted him to or whatever. I have no idea. But if John Cena were to beat Gunther, I honestly wouldn't care. I wouldn't. I'd be fine with it. I wouldn't fucking debate it for a week and a half, because that's what's going to happen. If John Cena were to win, you'd have all these YouTube debates for the next fucking 5 weeks. It's not necessary. If he wins, he wins. I'm perfectly fine with that. It would be fitting if he won, but it would also be fitting if he tapped out. And tonight, to me, it's just more about, you know, the fans getting an opportunity to see a real retirement. You know, John Cena, during his media rounds this week, he reiterated several times that he is not coming back. Shawn Michaels also said that he is not coming back. So a lot of guys say that, but John Cena might mean it. And the fans might actually have a chance here to watch a true retirement match where this is legitimately the last time we see him. He made a point to say, I'm not coming back for WrestleMania. And I don't want the fans to set themselves up for any sort of disappointment, which makes me wonder if they are setting us up for some big swerve. Cena gets on the mic. He's like, psych, I'm sticking around for another 2 years. That would be hilarious, but I just don't see it happening. I'm believing John when he says these things. I'm taking him at his word. And when he says he's going to be done tonight and he never will get physical or have a wrestling match again, I believe him. However, John Cena did just sign a 5-year ambassador deal with WWE, which I think was just a way for them to keep him in the family, just in case Tony Khan wanted to throw $3 million at John Cena to come make an appearance at a pay-per-view or something. Maybe that was the whole point of the ambassador deal, where he can still be linked to WWE. But in terms of him being in the ring, this is it. Tonight, we are, 4 hours away from that being the end. And I think some fans need to really take a minute to absorb what that means. You know, for somebody that's had the track record and somebody that's going to be viewed as one of the greatest of all time, a Rushmore guy, somebody very significant to this time period in WWE, you know, you got to appreciate, being able to see that and watch that come to an end in real time is something that I think we're all going to look back on as, you know, hopefully a fond memory. The year that John Cena retired. Of course, it's going to have its ups and downs, but his retirement match specifically, I hope, is one that that fans are satisfied with and remember fondly and don't view as a disappointment, because I wouldn't want that attached to John Cena's legacy. If I'm shitting the bed in his final match or something happening in it that really, really disappoints or bums out the fans or underwhelms them in any way. All I'm hoping for tonight is that whatever outcome we get, whatever the match is like, that we're satisfied with it, So we will see, but we will be keeping our eye on it this evening, or I will be, and I'll be here tomorrow afternoon to give you my thoughts and my review on all of it. But before we start jumping into some John Cena memories, I owe some hellos to people in the chat. I want to thank you guys for being here this afternoon. Apparently, we're going head-to-head with Collision right now. They're over in England, and the show was taped earlier, I think, today, and now it's airing for us live here in the States, I believe, right now. So I'm going head-to-head with Collision. So if you are here watching me, I appreciate that. But good to see Tatanani and Melissa and Rodrigo. We got Ryan Adams dropping in $2 for us. Feels like Mania today. Yeah, I hate that, though, because I can't be home tonight. I've got to fucking work. I'm going to miss John Cena's final match. But, yeah, it has that anticipation of a WrestleMania, because you know that tonight you're going to see something that's probably going to stay with you forever. And those days are big. Good to see WOC, Garrett Osborne, Gilbert Albalo. We got Tatanani. Harry Rice is in the house. We Are Pro Wrestling is here. D-Generation X in your house tomorrow night. We Are Pro Wrestling. Be here. Afro Money. We got Mike Rouse. I think I got you already. David Brown. We got Isaac. And 7 from Afro Money 713. Thank you for the $5. Hey, Greg. It was nice of you to give Gunther your spot for tonight. I know Cena would have been squashed like a bug if you made your debut tonight. Yeah, I thought it was more appropriate that Gunther got this match against John Cena. Plus, if I was in DC and that fat orange fuckface showed up, I'd have to slap him in his moron face. And I don't want to be thrown in jail. So I had to give Gunther my spot just for the safety of the president, because I would slap him. Jacob, good to see you. Also, handsome Steven Jacobson makes 2 of us. Sonic Plays in the house. We got Brandon here as well. Luke McAllister dropping in 10. Thank you for that, my friend. What's up, Greg? To think I was 3 when John Cena debuted and about to see his last match at 27 years old is remarkable. Truly my favorite wrestler of all time, and love his custom belt designs. You've got a perspective that a lot of fans have, and those are more of the fans that I'm thinking about today, as opposed to me. John Cena came into my life as a rookie when I was 25 years old. Fruity Pebbles John Cena reached his peak fan hate when I was in my mid-30s, or early 30s, I should say. So I had a completely different perspective on John Cena. Other people, like you, is a perfect example, because you were a child when you were John Cena's target demographic. You were the type of fan that John Cena had. Young kids loved him. It was the late teens, early 20s kids that had such a stick up their ass about him, because they were adults now and starting to mature, and they were starting to grow, and they were too young and missed out on the Attitude Era. And now they wanted all that stuff, and they're given this Fruity Pebble Barney motherfucker. So they, rejected him and rebelled against him. But you have other fans who were kids who legitimately, genuinely loved him. And now you are an adult, being 3 years old, which would make you probably 8 to 10 when John Cena really started, becoming who he is. And now you're 27. That's a big deal. That's the way kind of I was, sort of, with I don't have a specific example, because with Hogan it was different. Hogan I didn't like, when he went to WCW and stuff, but I guess Hogan would be the closest thing for me, as I was around 7 or 8 when he won the WWE title for the first time, and then all the way into my 20s he was kind of in WCW and stuff, so I didn't care too much about him. Cena is different. Cena had so many years in WWE as that one character that so many fans got to grow up with and mature to where, you were once 3 when he started, and now you are 27, and there's a lot of fans that are going to have that specific perspective. I was just a kid when Cena was on top, and now I'm an adult, that type of thing. All of those fans, I think they're going to have more emotion than I am. To me, I just appreciate always appreciated Cena. You know, always had his back. Never my favorite. His persona, his gimmick was never designed to attract a fan like me. But I didn't care. I understood what he brought. I appreciated that underneath that Barney costume did lie a pretty damn good professional wrestler, as he was having Match of the Year candidates in every year he wrestled in. You know, but there was just so much attached to him that a lot of fans failed to see that in him. You know, because I had already been through your Bretts and your Perfects and your Shawns and your Eddies and your Angles and all these great professional wrestlers. You know, you knew that John Cena wasn't those guys. He brought a different style, a different approach, wrestled a different way. His matches were good for different reasons than those other guys' matches were good. And that's why I've always been a big advocate for, you know, do not start gatekeeping or pearl clutching certain styles being the only way to do things. Pro wrestling encompasses so many different shapes and sizes and styles that it all falls under the pro wrestling umbrella. You know, if this isn't wrestling, yes, it is. If you've ever said this isn't wrestling while watching a pro wrestling match, you are wrong. It is pro wrestling. I don't care how many flips they're doing. I don't care what kind of silly costume they have. I don't care if there's, two chickens fucking in the middle of the ring while the opponents are eating hot dogs. I don't care. It is pro wrestling. You do a 450 splash off the top of a 3-story cage through 9 tables. That's professional wrestling. If you say it's not, you are stupid. And when it came to John Cena, it's the same thing. Because he's not Eddie, because he's not Brett, because he's not Angle, they think he can't wrestle. Then you don't know what wrestling is, if that's all you think wrestling is. And if that's all you think wrestling can be, then you don't understand the business at all. Wrestling encompasses everything. And fans looked at John Cena so negatively because he wasn't doing the same things that their previous favorites were. He was a different type of wrestler, a much different type of wrestler, out there wrestling in Reebok pumps and having good matches. One of his greatest rivals of all time is considered the greatest wrestler since Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles. There's a lot of good that can be seen in John Cena matches, and I've always maintained that, always. Ben is here. So is Zane G. Good to see Denny Down Bad, Young South Wavy, Danny, Stephen Harris, Kevin Plays. Who else is here? Jose, Doug Unfunny, Daniel, Mendola, VILL, 1N, Michael Cuomo, Chase, good to see you. Ryan Adams is dropping in another 5 for us as well. Was in the building for his bloody war with JBL at Judgment Day. That match definitely sticks out. It's one I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit. June 2002. Oh, yeah. Mike Rush, the restaurant doesn't have Peacock. Well, we're not going to be playing John Cena's final match in our bar. But you know who does have Peacock? My phone. I'll just be looking at my phone, watching it on there while I'm doing my business tonight. But anyway, we kind of killed it there for the shout-outs and whatnot. I told you guys what to expect for the rest of the weekend. We're going to be here tomorrow afternoon to review Saturday night's main event. But tonight, we're basically just going to preview John Cena's final match. Like I said, John Cena and Gunther apparently will main event tonight. That is the absolute right move. And like I said, I'm fine. Win, lose, or draw. Or actually not win, lose, or draw. I don't want to draw. But if Cena wins, I will be okay with it. I'm not going to sit here and debate it or immediately come up and do a YouTube video. Was that the right decision to do? I don't care. If he wins, he wins. He's John Cena. He has earned the right to do whatever he wants to do or whatever the WWE wants to do. He's WWE's property. His gimmick and everything is in WWE. It's ingrained in WWE and their history and their culture forever. And if WWE feels like they want this character, this icon to be truly immortalized, in a way that very few men have been before, then they might want him to win. That might be their decision for their brand, for their company, for John Cena's legacy. We would prefer it if John Cena, after all he gave to us, we want his legacy to be a victory in his final match. If that's their decision, I'm going to be okay with it. Like, I'm going to understand it. I'm going to get that perspective. Like, if that's what they want, even if I would prefer that he lost, I'm going to at least understand why WWE would want to do that. It wouldn't mean a burial for Gunther. Wouldn't harm Gunther at all. Gunther's still going to be fine. Plenty more people for Gunther to retire. And if John Cena wins his final match, I'm not going to offer up too many complaints. But if he does lose, I kind of think that would be the more fitting way to do it. He loses. Hopefully Gunther gets his ass out of the ring and John Cena is able to have that farewell with the crowd, maybe cut a promo, maybe you bring the roster out, something like that. I would really love something similar to what we saw with Ric Flair. You know, Ric Flair had such a beautiful retirement in 2008. One of my favorite segments on Monday Night Raw, the night after WrestleMania, where he was out there with all that love, you know, and he ruined it. Just a few months later, a couple years later, he's hopping in the ring fucking TNA and taking his ring off. Ring is off, watch is off. I'm getting back in the ring. Fuck you, dude. So, you know, I feel like that was ruined as well. John Cena, you know, if they did something like that for him, you know, where they didn't tell him, you know, where they just all came out after the match, leave the memories alone, you know, that type of thing. And you just clap and a standing ovation, you know, no music, just nothing but love and applaud and appreciation. John Cena in the ring, his peers, the fans, everybody standing and clapping, just giving him that. Just do that. You know, that's all I need. John Cena loses, gets just an emotional, warm send-off from everybody he works with in the WWE and all of the fans, nearly 20,000 of them in the building, and give him that send-off. I really hope it kind of goes that way, and that's what we see tonight. And that's what I'll be talking about tomorrow during the review. That's what I want to see out of John Cena. But, you know, I think when it comes to this retirement, I just want it to stand out as one that is a true retirement and one that we'll always look at differently. And no matter what they do tonight, they don't leave us with any regret, you know? Like, we're not talking about this match the way we talk about Shawn and Triple H against the Brothers of Destruction in Saudi Arabia. You know, I don't want to talk about that match this way. You know, I want this to all be memorable, and I want Cena to have a nice send-off here tonight. They've been doing a great job hyping it up, even though he hasn't been on TV. Did you guys see that incredible video package that WWE posted, a tribute from all of the wrestlers holding up their "We Can See You" sign or their hustle or their loyalty or respect sign? Virtually the whole roster. Very cool, very touching little tribute there to John Cena. And like I said, tonight is it. Tonight's the night. I want to talk about some of John Cena's best matches, or some of my favorite matches of John Cena's career. I didn't really go through the trouble of ranking the matches, but I wanted to talk about the matches that really stand out, that I think were significant, and I also think were good. You know, significant and good to the career, significant to the career of John Cena, and also very, very good, very, very memorable, and I think are all iconic matches. And I think the number one match on everybody's list is a match that he lost. It was John Cena versus CM Punk at Money in the Bank in 2011. Everything surrounding that, the pipe bomb that led up to it, and just the emotion and the energy in the building that night. It was basically like an expanded version of what John Cena went through a few years prior to that, I should say, at One Night Stand against Rob Van Dam. When he went into the Lion's Den there, and it was a very, very hostile Hammerstein ballroom there, all anti-Cena, all ready to riot if he won, and he walked right in there into the Lion's Den. And he did virtually the same thing here at Money in the Bank, going into Chicago in that building, in that rabid crowd. Everybody was wanting to see CM Punk win the title that night, and John Cena's, some of his best opponents and best performances have been in a losing effort. For all the fans that complained that he never lost and blah, 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 some of his best matches were losses. Money in the Bank 2011, One Night Stand 2006, SummerSlam 2014, SummerSlam 2016 versus AJ Styles. Some of his best matches were losses. And I never understood why fans never gave him credit for that. You know, because those are amazing matches that he was the loser in. And you remember him just as much as all the ones he won. So Money in the Bank 2011 against CM Punk, I'll always remember that one. Royal Rumble 2007 versus Umaga. That match was so much fun. We've watched that one together here over the years. A couple of years ago, we watched that Royal Rumble, and how much I enjoyed that match. And that whole feud with Umaga was really good, but specifically that Rumble match was so good and so different. And it had this violent aspect to it that I guess maybe I wasn't expecting it to go as far as it did, and it really surprised. And that ending when Cena's choking him out with the ring rope, oh my God, great stuff. Like I said, one night stand in 2006 against Rob Van Dam, going into the Hammerstein Ballroom there as champion to defend against RVD in front of a crowd that literally wanted to murder him. That was great shit. He had that bloody war with JBL at Judgment Day in 2005 that I thought was terrific. That was right after he won the championship in that very kind of lackluster WrestleMania 21 match, and then bounced back with a really memorable one versus JBL at Judgment Day there. Of course, he had the TLC match with Edge. Again, no, I think he won in that match. He won the TLC match versus Edge. That was Unforgiven 2006. They had traded the belt a couple of times, and that TLC match was so good. That's where he AA'd, I think, Edge off the top of the ladder through the tables, winning the title. And I just remember John Cena's reaction after the match. Like, he was almost disappointed in himself for having to take his violence to that degree, or take that's how much it took to put down Edge. He kind of had this look on his face I can't believe we had to go through all that just for me to win this spinner belt. There's a touch of regret in his eyes, and I just loved that story that he told. And it was a great match. On top of that, he had those two WrestleMania main events back to back against Shawn Michaels and Triple H, or Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Triple H at WrestleMania 22. I was convinced that year that Triple H was going to win the title, and John Cena tapped him out in the main event. It was rare to see people retain the championship in the main event. That really hadn't been done since probably Diesel. No, I guess since Triple H at WrestleMania 16, Diesel at 11, Triple H at 16, and then after that, I'm pretty sure it was Cena in 2022, and then he did it again the following year at WrestleMania 23 in 2007 against Shawn Michaels in that main event. Both of those matches, especially the Shawn one, was great. He had that great match with Shawn on Raw in England, remember? Right after WrestleMania. That was fucking tremendous. Tremendous. Not to mention his SummerSlam match in 2014 versus Brock, like I said, that he lost. That's very, very memorable. And he had the SummerSlam match a couple years later with AJ Styles. And I swear that match at SummerSlam 2016, it might be my favorite phenomenal forearm of all time. Was the move that ended the match. And AJ's executed that move a million times, but there was just something about that one. He came off with just such intensity and just drove that forearm into Cena's face, putting him down and winning the match. Year before that, Kevin Owens makes his in-ring debut. He confronts John Cena on Raw. They have a match on Elimination Chamber? NXT champion versus U.S. champion, and Owens pop-up power bombs and pins him in a super shocking win. And I remember being really pleasantly surprised. So his matches with Owens, his matches with AJ, especially with AJ. Some people feel like AJ is John Cena's greatest opponent. And if you feel that way, I'm not going to argue with you. Because back in the TNA days, when AJ was there, and John Cena was on top, it was always, John Cena is a shitty wrestler and AJ Styles is a good wrestler, and really together they worked extremely well together, and they're living proof. Like what I've been talking about, and I've said so many times over the years, and I said just a little while earlier, some fans hated John Cena because he wasn't Ray or Shawn, or he wasn't Angle or Shawn or Eddie or anybody like that. And they felt like that's the only way you can be a good wrestler. And here you have somebody like AJ who's got that reputation as good as a Shawn or a Brett or an Angle or an Eddie. And he's coming in here with a wrestler like John Cena and not carrying him. They're having good matches together, great chemistry. They meshed well. And AJ was living proof that John Cena is a good professional wrestler. His style might be weird. You can hear him calling spots from across the fucking street, and it's not all perfect, but his matches are good. His matches are entertaining, and he takes you on a ride. And that's what pro wrestling is all about. And having the guy that wrestling fans considered the worst wrestler going up against the guy that fans considered to be the best wrestler in the world really made for a beautiful partnership. And they had amazing matches together. I think, even his match with Cody at SummerSlam. The match with WrestleMania was a pile of shit, but they really made up for it at SummerSlam this past year when Cody won the belt back from John Cena, and John Cena essentially right there in the middle of the match turned back into being a babyface. I kind of didn't like how we got there, but it was nice to see that run its course. Cody win the belt back. The two of them have a much better match than they had at WrestleMania. And John Cena reverting back to who he was prior to the big heel turn at Elimination Chamber. So a lot of those, I think, are some of the standout matches for me in John Cena's career. He also had a lot of standout moments, like his debut, showing up and slapping Kurt Angle right in the face with a ruthless aggression. And he was that boring guy that just wore the colors of the local city's sports teams out there to the ring every night. And then apparently Stephanie McMahon discovers that he can rap a little bit, and they slap the Thugonomics gimmick on him, which I've said over and over through the years that I didn't even like the Thugonomics gimmick. Like by the time that started in 03 and 04, I guess 03 was when it kind of got cooking there. I remember not being really into it, because to me, I was still suffering the Attitude Era hangover. Austin, Rock, they were gone. All of even the WWF initials were gone. Everything was so different from 2003 to me as a fan compared to 2000. Just in that 3-year span, things had changed so dramatically that I was having trouble getting used to it. There's no Rock, there was no Austin, there was no Foley. Undertaker was a completely different cat. Everybody hated Triple H because now he has entered his reign of terror. DX was a thing of the past. Everything was just kind of different, and I wasn't really loving the business or loving WWE at that time. So here comes John Cena, and I just wasn't really impressed with him at first. Didn't have anything against him, but just like, oh, who's this guy, John Cena? And then he starts to rap and stuff, and I'm like, okay, he just looks like Marky Mark. He looks like Marky Mark. He looks exactly like Marky Mark to me. And so I didn't really think it was that cool of a gimmick. The white rapper, he had some fun rhymes, and he would make you smile a couple of times in his promos, and he definitely had some raps that the fan that got oohs and ahs from the crowd and whatnot. But to me, it wasn't for me, and I have the reverse perspective of so many fans, because a lot of fans who hated John Cena loved the Thugonomics character. They loved that. They missed that. And they hated this new Fruity Pebble version. But to me, I found John Cena more authentic as that than Thugonomics. And I never was a big fan of Thugonomics. So I had the reverse effect. Most fans loved Thugonomics, hated Fruity Pebble. I liked Fruity Pebble, didn't like Thugonomics. I'm different. I'm an enigma, like me and Jeff Hardy. He also had that first big singles title win, WrestleMania 20, Madison Square Garden, beating the Big Show there, I think like in the opener, right? I always remember that pop. I'll always remember the reaction from the crowd when he F5'd him and pinned him. That was like a great moment. He had this first title win at WrestleMania 21 the following year, but in those days, Batista was going to be the top guy and John Cena was going to be the number 2. I even think WWE thought that Randy Orton was going to be above John Cena at some point, but John Cena leapfrogged both of them, and John Cena was in the mid-card, in the undercard that night, in that match with JBL. Very basic match, very boring match. He simply won with an FU or an AA, where in the main event, Batista was bloody, Triple H was bloody. It was a little bit more grittier and highlier contested of a match than JBL and Cena was, and then they would have to bounce back with their Judgment Day match to get the intensity and the violence there. So his win at WrestleMania 21 wasn't that memorable for being good. It was probably memorable for sucking and looking like John Cena was going to be the secondary champion when he turned out to be the fucking poster boy. But I don't think WWE quite knew that yet in 2005. Of course, he had his feud with The Rock that spanned several WrestleManias, 27, 28, and 29. I loved the build-up and the promo battles they had in 2011 there before WrestleMania 27. And then I liked the match at 28, WrestleMania 28. Absolutely hated the match. The following year at WrestleMania 29, thought they missed a big opportunity there to turn John Cena heel, and they did not. They were too chicken shit to do it, and I would have liked to see what the wrestling world would have looked like if John Cena would have turned heel. But he didn't, but the Rock feud was still very, very memorable because it was kind of icon versus icon. Not to mention everything he did with the Make-A-Wish. Granting all of those wishes, making the day of sick and terminally ill kids for the better part of 20 years, doing more Make-A-Wish meet ups than anybody else in history, and that was really, really important to him. He set records doing that Make-A-Wish stuff, which was probably part of the reason why they never wanted to fully turn him heel during those years, which I can understand. But, John Cena was always there. He never changed a lot. John Cena has never grown a beard. He's never had long hair. We've never seen him look any different than he looks. He's never changed up his wrestling gear. He's always in the jorts and the shoes. He has a different color shirt every 5 minutes, but it's largely the same. The shirt, the wristbands, the hat. He has maintained the same look throughout his entire career with very few fluctuations. He's the opposite of an Undertaker or a Chris Jericho who constantly reinvents themselves. He never really reinvented himself. He just stayed true to who he was, and that is, a lot of times, that's okay too. I think that's almost just as impressive, being able to stay who you are, staying relevant by not changing anything. That's equally as impressive to me as having the ability to recognize that you need to change up your gimmick. And Chris Jericho tried to keep things fresh by changing things up, taking breaks, and doing things like that. So did The Undertaker. John Cena didn't need to do any of that. He came back as the same guy every time, and the fans welcomed him, for the most part, with open arms, and he always had his fans out there. There might be a lot of fans booing in the crowd, but as many fans are booing, the equal amount is cheering. And during those years of his polarizing years, I thought those were kind of the most fun, because one thing that I always maintained about John Cena that was so unique and different that very few guys were able to do is generate a reaction from literally 100% of the audience in the building. Even the biggest stars of all time might not be for everybody. John Cena was beloved by a portion of the audience and hated by a portion of the audience. There are very few people that were indifferent about John Cena. Everybody had an opinion about John Cena. Everybody was usually one way or the other. I never really came across anybody that said, I don't really have an opinion of John Cena. I don't really care too much. No, you cared. You either passionately hated him or you passionately loved him. And when he would come out to the crowd, everybody's making noise. And I don't believe in the saying that bad press is good press or whatever. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that negative attention is necessarily good. But in Cena's case, it was so split, it made it interesting. Where you got 50% of the audience cheering him, 50% of the audience booing him, and that collectively makes a very, very loud environment for John Cena matches because everybody is engaged. Everybody is interested in what he is doing. And when the fans would sit there and complain, I don't understand why John Cena doesn't win, well, keeps winning, why you keep pushing him. Well, you don't understand? What are you not understanding? Did you not see the match? Did you not hear the crowd? Did you not see the emotion and the electricity that was in the arena throughout the entire thing? Were fans in the bathroom? Were fans in the concession stands? Were fans looking at their phone? Were fans being quiet? No, they were the opposite of that. They were on their feet shouting at the ring, just like WWE wants. And when you got a guy that's generating that much of a reaction from his audience, which is a combination of good and bad, I liked the uniqueness of that because we really hadn't seen that before, and WWE was not about to end that. They saw that John Cena had that polarizing effect on the wrestling audience, and they capitalized. And those were some of the most unique Cena years. I liked the matches that he went out there, and he was being heavily booed because they were booing him so loud. It wasn't like go-away heat. A lot of fans wanted John Cena to disappear, but they really didn't in their hearts believe that. That's what they would say, but I truly believe there was a big part of them that enjoyed having something to passionately love or dislike. That's what wrestling is all about. You're supposed to cheer your favorites and boo the people you don't like. And John Cena, even though he was a babyface, a lot of people didn't like him, and a lot of people were vocal about that. So I feel like all of that was a unique and positive contribution that John Cena brought to wrestling because up until that point, we hadn't seen anybody that was really like that. Everything was more cut and dry, black and white. You were either on this side of the fence or that side of the fence. You were either a good guy or a bad guy. John Cena was a good guy. His character was a good guy, but it wasn't resonating and connecting with 100% of the audience. It was connecting with a portion of the audience, primarily young kids. And that was not very pleasing to some of the older generation fans that were kind of sick of him. And like I said, the loudest ones, the ones that hated him the most, I've always said was a very specific age group in there. And that is the fans that were young and probably had bedtimes. They probably had bedtimes during the Attitude Era. Or better yet, they might have had parents or a mother who didn't let them watch the Attitude Era. You can't watch that suck it and that crotch chopping and that middle finger guy and the beer drinking guy. I'm not going to let you watch that. You're fucking 5. So you missed out. And now you're older, and then those same fans that were too young to really enjoy the Attitude Era. Like I said, I was already out of high school when the Attitude Era started. I was 20, and it kind of lasted until I was like maybe 25-ish. So 20 to 25 was when I got to experience the Attitude Era. Perfect age, right? For that type of time period. The other fans were too young. Then they grew up. Then they got to be the age that I was. Then they were 20 and 25, and they don't get the Attitude Era. They get Barney. They get Fruity Pebbles John Cena. They get hustle, loyalty, and respect. They get a PG TV rating because after Benoit murdered his family and then murdered himself, WWE had to pivot and transition into a PG environment, trying to repair the destroyed reputation, that they're getting for the behavior of the wrestlers and a lot of their business practices and whatnot. So they're trying to change things, go to a more PG environment, no more blunt force trauma to the heads, no more chair shots, no more blood, and really changing things up. And John Cena became the poster boy of that era. So those fans that were too young to appreciate the mature content of the Attitude Era are now mature, and WWE has regressed. They've now gone into a more, I remember that Saturday morning show, that Saturday morning slam show they had. It reminded me of WWF Mania. I'm like, oh my God, we're going backwards here. We got big, bright, fluorescent green Saturday morning shows again. Where's Todd Pettengill? Let's get him back out there. It felt like we were kind of going in reverse. And a lot of those fans, the ones that were so anti-John Cena, they were the ones that were suffering the most. That's why they were the most loud, because they were young. They were males, all males, young males, full of P&V, probably sexually frustrated, still searching for that elusive first kiss, and they got to watch fucking Barney on their TV, and they're just mad and angry about it, and they never shut the fuck up about it. It was just like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, children, one of these days you're going to grow up, and you're going to look back when you were 20 and say, my God, was I a fucking idiot? You know why? Because I did the same thing. Luckily for me, social media didn't exist. Because if 16 to 20-year-old Greg put every wrestling thought out there into the internet, I'd probably be pretty embarrassed of myself too. But luckily for me, I didn't have to worry about that. My thoughts and my beliefs and my feelings weren't on permanent record forever on the worldwide interweb like they are now for so many fans that said so many horrible fucking things. The attacks that I got. You're a John Cena dick sucker. I'm like, is that all you have? Is that all you have? Is that the first place your mind goes? Are you so simple? Are you such a fucking ape? Are you such a fucking orangutan that's the only thing your brain can think of? Boy, if this guy's defending John Cena, he must whack off to his pictures. Really? Okay, whatever you got to tell yourself. That's fine with me. It's just silly. That's the level of anger, the level of delusion, the level of just common sense that was lacking in a lot of those years and a lot of those fans. I always just kind of chuckled at. And I said over and over, I'm like, well, you're going to get older. And what's going to happen when John Cena starts nearing the end of his career and we get close to the end of it, or he rides off into the sunset, or he retires, or whatever he does, you're going to change your tune on him. And I'd say for the past 8 years, John Cena's been relatively easy to tolerate, has he not? I'd say since 2017, he won that final title, or before winning the one that he had now. I think that was his final one. Before he won the belt from Cody at WrestleMania, was his previous world title the one against AJ? Or did he have at the Royal Rumble, or did he have another one stuck in there somewhere I'm forgetting? Did he have a run in 2018 or something I'm forgetting? Anyway, he beat AJ Styles, right, at the Royal Rumble 2017 for the championship. And I'd say since then, ever since then, John Cena has been like easier to tolerate, because even that night, even because he lost to AJ at the previous year's SummerSlam. So the fans weren't mad at him then. And I remember that night at the Rumble in 2017 when Cena won, starting to think that the fans are starting to turn around. They weren't losing their mind, booing like crazy when he beat AJ that night. There was some boos, but there was also a lot of appreciation, a lot of cheers. And I'm like, okay, that's the moment in my mind that the fans started slightly turning the corner. I said, okay, all of the hate, all of the rage, all of the unhinged nonsense these fans are piling on John Cena, they are losing interest in that and now transferring all that hate to Roman Reigns. There was a new enemy in town, a new kid on the block for fans to dump all of their rage and anger on, and that was Roman Reigns. And they started turning the corner a little bit on John Cena. And ever since then, I feel like Cena's been easy to tolerate. He got squashed by The Undertaker the following year at WrestleMania 34. At WrestleMania 36, I don't remember what he did at 35. Was he even at 35? He might have missed that one. At 36, he lost to Bray Wyatt in the COVID match. You know, he might have missed 37 too. I don't know what he did at 38 either. The fuck did he do at 38? I think he just came out there. So anyway, Cena hasn't been bombarding and dominating the world title scene, winning every match, dominating pay-per-view main events, winning title after title, beating all the top stars, burying everybody. All that stuff from Cena was pretty much a thing of the past. And for the past 8 years, I feel like Cena's been easy to deal with. When he's shown back up, fans haven't been shitting their pants or what is he doing back or whatever, because he's taken some time off doing his movies. He's transitioned into Hollywood, transitioned into television, and he's been doing a lot of other things, and he's taken periods of time off from WWE, big chunks of time at a time. And then when he comes back, it's a little bit easier to deal with him because he's not shoved down our throats. That was another big phrase back then. WWE shoving him down our throats. Fans don't know what shoving someone down their throat means. All they were doing is treating John Cena like their world champion, like their top star in the company, like they have everybody. Austin, Hogan, Rock, they were all pushed the same way. They won a lot. They won a lot of championships. They were in a lot of main events. But when it's somebody you don't like, it's shoving them down your throats. But everybody else that's been in this position, it's just been no normal booking. That's the way you book and present a world champion. Sure, John Cena probably won a match here or two that he shouldn't have. That Nexus match is highly debated. And there's I can't think of specifics right now, but there's definitely a couple of matches that I feel like he should have lost. But most fans that hated him feel like he should have lost every match. He's got to lose every single match. And if he won one, it was just, they're going to fucking flip their shit. So there are some matches that John Cena, I feel like, should have lost. Maybe won a couple of times too many. Maybe one here or there where he should have lost. But it in no way can compare to the "that doesn't work for me, brother" years of Hulk Hogan or any other top star that really was difficult to work with. You know who was difficult as all fuck to work with? Stone Cold Steve Austin. More difficult than Cena. More difficult than Triple H. Probably not quite as bad as Hogan. Maybe more on par with a Goldberg. But Austin was a pain in the ass. How many times did they have to rework creative decisions because of him? 1999 comes to mind. It was time to belt up Triple H. Branched off from DX, became the cerebral assassin. He needs a big win against a big champion. Triple H versus Austin at SummerSlam, that's where you do it. Jesse Ventura is the referee. Austin said no. So they put Mankind in the match. Austin dropped the belt to Mankind, and then Mankind dropped it to Triple H. What the fuck is that? Now, in hindsight, that's karma, because Triple H turned out to be such a son of a bitch later on in his career with the Reign of Terror that I don't really care that happened to him. But Austin was like that. Austin made a stink about working with Mark Marrow because Mark Marrow powerbombed Sable. He took his ball and went home in 2002. Didn't want to work with Scott Hall at WrestleMania 18. Whining and bitching all the time. Not to mention his personal problems that were bleeding over into his pro wrestling life, much like they did with Shawn Michaels. In a different way, Austin wasn't a drug addict, but he was fucking drinking a lot. in Austin. Don't forget, we have somehow forgiven him for his domestic incident that got him arrested. So there's so many stars and so many top stars that I feel were like infinitely worse than John Cena. But yet we still look at all of those stars as icons, and we look at them fondly because at the time we might have enjoyed their career more. So fans, I always thought, had a hard time separating, John Cena's booking, the booking of John Cena, from who John Cena was. And as a fan of pro wrestling, as somebody who's feels like I'm an ambassador for pro wrestling just in general, because I love the business and I want the business's top stars to be people who we can look back on with fond memories. And after all of John Cena's, so many of John Cena's predecessors were alcoholics, drug addicts, domestic abusers. Some of them were murderers. Some of them were racists. Some of them were adulterers, and some of them did some bad things. And to see John Cena come around, who carries himself well, keeps his nose clean, never gets in trouble, never see a DUI mugshot for John Cena. You never hear a 911 call about John Cena punching around his fucking girlfriend in his house or anything like that. You never hear that about John Cena. He keeps his shit together. And he's so 100% the business all the time, almost to a fault. John Cena was making the media rounds this week. Joe Rogan, Chris Van Vliet, Pat McAfee, some of the late night shows. He's very robotic. He doesn't offer a whole lot to say. Sometimes I wonder if John Cena's dumb, because some things he speaks from a tone that's like so deep, but the words coming out aren't deep. There's no substance to them. It's just very robotic, very, kind of typical responses from John Cena. But still, he always comes off professional, comes off mature. People enjoy talking to him. I remember when Chris Benoit did what he did, and John Cena was like on Larry King, and they had to kind of put him out there a little bit. How well he handled that responsibility to be able to talk and represent your company, and not come across as someone who's, self-absorbed or trying to make it about themselves or anything like that. He came across professional, intelligent, well-spoken, and those are things that when we had seen some of the top stars prior to Cena, that was something that I thought was very important to the image of WWE, to have your poster boy, to have one of your top stars, to have your world champion be someone that you were confident to send out there into the world, because you always know, no matter where you send John Cena, he's going to represent the company and the brand well. And that's another thing that I really appreciated from John Cena as a wrestling fan that have seen so many of my heroes, so many of my favorite wrestlers behave like jackasses. For John Cena to be the exact opposite of that was good for the business. Was everything that he did good for the business? No. But most of it was good. I don't give a shit if he, like I said, if he bullied Alex Riley or David Otunga. I don't give a fuck. Was he pilled off his ass? Was he banging his coworkers' girlfriends in the locker room? Was he punching around his wife? Was he murdering his wife? Was he murdering his kid? Was he showing up to TV fucked up? Was he refusing to do jobs and taking his ball, taking his jorts and going home? Was he pulling an Austin or a Sasha or a what's her fucking name? Naomi. Was he doing any of that stuff? Was he walking out? Was he screaming? Was he having shouting matches with his bosses? Was he throwing championship belts at Vince McMahon's face after his WrestleMania match coming through the curtain? Was he doing any of that? No, never came off as an asshole. And if I'm sure John Cena can be an asshole, but we, the audience, got very few glimpses of that. If anything, we got to see John Cena's full range, and now we see him in movies, and we see how talented he actually is, and how he's good at a lot of things, specifically talking and being a character. And he got tremendous promos. He always rose to the occasion. Every time he was out there with a stick, every time he had a microphone in his hand, he delivered. He outperformed everybody who was across the ring from. And a lot of those things, I think, went underappreciated. I think a lot of fans now appreciate that. Like I said, the same fans that hated him, they're grown up now. I think they appreciate and probably agree with that sentiment, but they didn't back then. He couldn't cut a promo. No, he can cut a promo. Problem is, a lot of the material they give him is just a lot of the same shit every week. But John Cena has the gift of speaking. John Cena can cut a pro wrestling promo. He is one of the best, always has been. His delivery, his ability to deliver the lines or the material that they give for him has always been tremendous. So I think fans, much like, like with his wrestling, they say he can't cut a promo. No, he can. You can only do so much with what WWE gives you, and this is his character. What do you want him to say? Be specific when you say he can't cut a promo, because I'm seeing the exact opposite. I'm seeing someone who is comfortable on the mic, he's deliberate in what he says. Very rarely has to check his hand, for his notes. Very, very rarely forgets what he's supposed to say. And if he does, he covers for it beautifully. He's excellent. He's excellent on the mic, excellent in the ring, great representation of what a main eventer should be. And those are the positives that I think I'll always take away from John Cena's career. And now that it's all coming to an end, it's a little bit emotional to watch all of these years, all these different time periods of John Cena's career, all the discussions we've had over the years, good and bad, about his wins, about his losses, about his WrestleMania matches, some of the rants I went on. This YouTube channel was partially founded because I was going against the grain. I was speaking out against the John Cena hate. And I was one of the ones that was loudly saying, you guys are wrong about this, okay? I understand that John Cena's got his problems. There are glaring issues with his creative. I get what you guys are saying, but you're coming across so self-centered and lacking focus on the bigger picture. That was always my complaint. I'm like, I get that he's winning a lot, but you're not understanding why. You're so in your bubble of what you think wrestling should be. And the type of fans that hated John Cena the most are the exact same type of fans that say shit like, this isn't wrestling, when they're watching a wrestling match. Those are the type of fans that didn't like him. And that's why I never had a whole lot of respect for those fans. Now, if you want to sit down and have a respectful debate, then fine, because there was a lot of really intelligent and smart people in the community that did not like John Cena and had good reasons for that. But they were rational reasons. They were real reasons. They weren't rooted in so much hate and rage. They were more mature. Those are the type of people that I enjoyed bantering with and talking with and debating with about John Cena, because if I can tell that you're not so caught up in your own cross-eyed slobbering rage and you actually just want to talk like a human about this, great. Let's do it. Let's point out his flaws. Let's point out his positives and his negatives. Let's lay it all out and talk about his career in that way. But unfortunately, I never got any of those responses. Nobody ever wanted to talk about John Cena intelligent with me. All they wanted to do was make a dildo with John Cena's face on it and then send it to me. That's what they thought. That's their argument, because that's where their maturity level was. Just non-existent. Just didn't exist. How can I talk to somebody like that? They're idiots. So it was a lot of that shit. It was a lot of that shit for so many years. But Cena's career was different when you look at all the different, main eventers and top stars of every era. And I've been lucky enough to witness mostly all of them. I came in right after Bruno's run. I was old enough for a little bit of Backlund, and then Hogan, and then Savage, and then Warrior, and then Brett, and then Shawn, and then Rock, and then Austin, and Triple H, and Mankind, and Undertaker, into your John Cenas and your Batistas and your Randy Ortons and your Brock Lesnar's and your Roman Reigns and your AJ Styles, all of these wrestlers through different time periods, different world champions from different companies, different parts of the world. John Cena is always going to stand out as one of the most unique ones. Somebody that had a reputation that nobody else had, somebody that had an effect on the audience the way no one else did. And, somebody who strung together one of the most impressive runs that will be really, really difficult to duplicate, to be that same character, virtually unchanged for 20 plus years. And everything that he meant to the company, obviously you got Roman Reigns, and there's going to be other people that are in his position, like Cody is in now. I feel like Cody Rhodes is WWE's new John Cena. And so they're going to have their legacies to leave behind as well. But I think John's is unique to him, to where you're not going to have too many careers that are going to run parallel or be similar to his, where when we talk about Eddie or Kurt or Brett or Shawn, a lot of our thoughts on those guys overlap. They're the same. We have a lot of the same opinions about a lot of those guys. But John Cena was doing things, and John Cena had the type of career that you can't really compare or measure up to anybody else because of how different it was from everybody else. Different character, different type of wrestler, different era, and just a different career trajectory that a lot of guys didn't go through. And Cena, I think, will always be remembered for a lot of reasons, but that's got to be one of them, because you don't see, we haven't seen a Cena, we haven't seen him, he's the first one, he's the first Cena to come around to where we've seen somebody do specifically the things that he has done and had that connection and that effect on the audience in such a polarizing way. So he's unique in that way. And tonight, pro wrestling says goodbye to one of its most unique and most interesting characters for all of his good and all of his bad. Very, very interesting career, and one that I'm going to be sad to see come to an end tonight. Like I said, I'm bummed out that I'm not going to be here in 2 hours to watch the show start because I got to hop in my car and head to work. But I will be watching it tonight. I will be also eyeballing social media and Peacock while I'm at work, so feel free to send me your updates, your thoughts, your memories, anything like that going on with John Cena tonight for his final match. Please send them my way, and we will be here to talk about it tomorrow. But I just want to wish John Cena the best of luck tonight as he dons the jorts for the final time. I'm sure it's going to be very emotional, and I hope that John Cena has a good, memorable match with Gunther, and regardless of what the outcome is, I hope fans, and John Cena especially, and the fans get the closure they want. I don't care if WWE gets their closure. Fuck them. I'm concerned with John Cena and his fans. So I hope that at the end of it, you guys at home are satisfied. You're tweeting me things like, oh my God, Greg, that was the greatest send-off I've ever seen. One of WWE's best retirements. So emotional, so wonderful. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. That's the reaction I want to hear from you guys tonight. I'm hoping that it's not a letdown. I'm hoping they don't book the match in a way that's lazy, which WWE tends to want to do sometimes. They got 19,000 people there. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of this moment and give John Cena the send-off of a lifetime. I want to see the wrestlers come out. I want to see everybody send him off with a standing ovation. That's what I want to see. Cena in the ring by himself as the show goes off the air. And win or lose, they need to find a way to make that happen. So tonight is the night. Good luck, John Cena, and thank you. Thank you for an amazing 22 years. I have a lot of good and bad memories of your career, and mostly good, though. Mostly good. Yeah, tonight's the end, guys. No more John Cena. Thanks for everything, champ. We do have some wrestling news to get into, not too much because I wanted this to focus mostly on John Cena, talk about our favorite, John Cena moments and whatnot. But we also have a few little tidbits of news to get into. Number one, this is according to WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select. WWE has a PLE coming to Italy on May 31st of next year, and that is currently being reported as being a Backlash event. I guess Backlash is the placeholder name that they're using for that. It's probably going to end up being Backlash unless they change it to Clash in Italy, or I don't know if Pastamania is still trademarked. But if Pastamania is not trademarked, that would be a good name. Otherwise, it looks like Backlash is going to be in Italy, and that's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see an Italian WWE PLE crowd. That's going to be badass. So congrats to Italy, who is going to be getting a PLE next year, probably Backlash. Also, we've got a big update, too, on the WWE video library. We talked about this extensively last week as we learned that WWE and their deal with Peacock is going to be over at the end of the month, meaning that all of the WWE PLEs and their entire backlog of content is going to be removed from Peacock. And we were speculating about what the future might be for the library and what we were hoping the future would be for the library. And I've been maintaining all along that I think the library should just be right here on YouTube. That would be the easiest way to navigate it. It would be the easiest way for us to do watch-alongs, and WWE can probably make a few bucks doing that as well. So YouTube feels like the most likely place. They already have the WWE and WCW Vault channels that does have content uploaded to it relatively frequently that the fans absolutely love. And it does look like YouTube will be the home for WWE's library in the future, but it's not going to all be coming at once. This is according to Fightful Select this week, and I quote, "Those that we heard from expect the content to be slowly rolled out on YouTube and the various vault channels that WWE owns. It is believed that because of the size of WWE's footprint on YouTube, that they likely have a favorable deal with Google. It is not expected that WWE will just upload the entire library. They've long been happy with the buzz their vault channels get and the return they receive financially. It's also internally viewed as a way to cultivate new fans. We weren't told of any real change to vault, just that there will be the possibility of more content appearing on those channels. When speaking to people who have been around the company for years, they said that the library just wasn't the specific draw that many fans thought it was. It was a big drawing point initially and something great to include in the Peacock deal, but on its own wasn't likely to fetch a high rights fee deal. Another WWE source said that if they get an offer for the library that makes sense, they'll reserve the right to take it with the YouTube method in effect." So sounds like they didn't even want to bother shopping around the content or the library for its own separate media rights deal because they don't think they can get a lot for it. And putting it on YouTube looks like where they're going to be going. That looks like the direction. Unless they get an offer for the library, they can still do that in the future, it sounds like, because I don't think any deal is going to have to be signed with YouTube. WWE can just upload that stuff and then take it down if they ever want to. So I think that's a good idea. I had proposed last week of putting the content behind a $9.99 paywall because some fans would pay it, but that's kind of an inflated price. WWE Network was $9.99, but we got the pay-per-views with that as well. Where now we have to subscribe to ESPN to get those. So if you're just talking about the library alone, then upload it all for free on YouTube or put it behind a small paywall. Either you have to be a premium subscriber to access it, or maybe it's behind a $5.99 or $4.99 paywall on WWE's Vault. And once you do that, you can, because a lot of people were like, well, what do you do with the Benoit matches? And I'm like, you still put them up there. You put every pay-per-view up there. Just maybe put a good portion of it behind a paywall. It sounds like it's not even going to be a paywall. They're just going to slowly make things available on the Vault channels. So that's why we had a WWE Vault channel that was channel watch along month originally scheduled for December. We were going to do that all throughout the month, but once we learned about the Peacock stuff, I decided to bump that to January so we can take advantage of Peacock and having full access to all the pay-per-views, which is why we're doing some Starcades this month and we're doing DX in your house tomorrow. But in January, we're going to do Vault watch-alongs, Vault matches, and things like that. So it's good that content hopefully will start showing up there at the beginning of the year, because we're going to want as much content available on those Vault channels as possible in order for us to do our watch-alongs on Sundays. So watch-alongs might get a little different on Sundays going forward. If we come across a Sunday where all the PLEs on the Vault channels we've already done, then we might have to, we're going to be taking a conglomeration of matches and just watching those, or figuring out some other alternative, maybe watching a TNA show or something like that. But we'll do some planning and figure out what we're going to do for the watch-alongs next year. But looks like YouTube, we're going to slowly start seeing more of the WWE library appear here, which is good because this is where it needs to be, right here on YouTube. I mentioned earlier John Cena going on all of the different media rounds this week. He did Joe Rogan. He did Pat McAfee. He did some late night shows, I think maybe Kimmel or Fallon or something like that. And he was also on Chris Van Vliet. Now, I have not watched the entire interview yet, but apparently John Cena might have let it slip that WWE is also looking into retirement plans for Brock Lesnar. Now, Brock Lesnar just came back, of course. I think he was asked about why, or maybe asked about the WrestlePalooza match or something like that, when Brock completely squashed John Cena. And Cena mentioned something about, Brock Lesnar maybe wrapping things up, that WWE has got some show planned for him in Minnesota that might be his retirement match. And he was talking about how, they need to build Brock up in order to give someone a mountain to climb for Brock's last match, which I think might be against Gunther as well when that time comes. But This still remains to be seen. It still lacks context. We still don't know if any of this is true, but WWE might actually be looking to retire Brock Lesnar as well. Now, I wasn't expecting Brock Lesnar to come back and then just retire within the first year, but we do know that Brock Lesnar probably isn't going to be wrestling for too much longer, so a retirement is probably on the horizon. But this year in 2026 seems kind of soon, so I'm surprised if that's the plan. I mean, Brock's made enough money. He doesn't need to do this anymore. Brock is, kind of an introvert. He doesn't like to be around a lot of people. So I'm sure he's ready to just retire and, go call it a day and call it a career and grow old, there in Minnesota or Saskatchewan or wherever the hell he lives. And maybe we're going to see the end of him this year. And you have to add his name to the already huge name, or list of names, I should say. We've got AJ Styles, who also said 2026 is going to be his final year. Apparently, WWE has offered a retirement angle to Chris Jericho. Rey Mysterio is in his 70s, or whatever he is. He's old as shit. Now you got Brock Lesnar. You add his name to the list. Don't forget about Sheamus either. And then over in AEW, you've got Samoa Joe, who's probably nearing the end as well. And who else do you have in WWE that's probably going to be hanging up the boots or the tights relatively soon? That's a lot of people. And, some people are saying, man, that's so many retirements in 1 year. But I think that's just it's coincidental is all. There are so many current Hall of Famers like Ray and future Hall of Famers in their late 40s and early 50s even right now that at some point like a retirement traffic jam was inevitable. They can't retire all these guys at once. Well, I don't think we're going to have a choice. I think a lot of these guys are just coming up to the end of their careers, and a bunch of them are happening right at the same time. I say take advantage of that. I say take advantage of the uniqueness of that. And I think it might be fun 20 years in the future to look back on the time that over a half a dozen of the industry's greatest of all time retired at the same time, retired all at once. Goldberg, John Cena, AJ Styles, Rey Mysterio, Brock Lesnar, Samoa Joe. Did I say Jericho? Think about all these guys that could all retire. And I would actually take advantage of that. I would take advantage of this real-time changing of the guard that we're seeing happen right now and make this time period, make 2024 through 2026 a time period that in the future fans look back on and they bookmark that as a significant shift in making the business whatever it looks like in the next 20 years. Remember the time that all those guys retired? Maybe we remember this. Maybe we don't notice it right now. We're thinking it's weird. We're second-guessing everything. Oh, no, there's too many retirements. No, I say this is kind of unique. I say this is kind of cool. And I think years from now, we might look back at these years as memorable because of how many careers ended in this amount of time. Now, it remains to be seen if Gunther does all of these, but if Brock Lesnar is planning a retirement match for next year, Gunther is the only guy, to me, that would make sense. Gunther or Braun Breaker. Gunther or Braun Breaker, perhaps, would work. But this might be Gunther's gimmick. Don't forget Randy Orton. He ain't no spring chicken either. He'll probably be retiring at some point. We don't know what the status of Kevin Owens is and his neck. Who else is old as shit in the company? What about Kofi? What about the New Day and stuff? At some point, they're going to have to call it a day too. Roman Reigns will call it a day. Paul Heyman can't be managing forever. I'm worried about his health because he's always angry, red-faced, shoving fans out of the way, and he's fucking huge. Doesn't seem like he's eating very well. Let me put it that way. So there's a lot of guys. So if there's going to be this like mass retirements, these mass retirements, I say take advantage of that and make the best of it. Unless, of course, WWE slap Slim Jim logos over every retirement tour, and then they shove their corporate cocks up our butts. If they just make it all corporate-y and sponsor every damn retirement tour and try to squeeze and choke every nickel out of their audience they can, then we might not look back on these retirement tours as very memorable. But because, WWE's got so many, if they're going to have Slim Jim and Riyadh Season and a fucking video game and a Real American Beer sponsor each one of these retirement tours. Riyadh Season brings to you the retirement tour of Randy Orton. We don't want to see all that. So it just all depends on how it's executed. But I do think that having all of these guys about to end their careers at once might actually make this little period of 1 to 3 years here really memorable looking back. The time that we lost so many greats in the matter of 2 years. CM Punk. CM Punk is another name. CM Punk, add him to the list. That's not going to be doing it for much longer. So let's recap here. You got Randy Orton, CM Punk, Goldberg, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Rey Mysterio, AJ Styles, Chris Jericho, Sheamus. How many is that now? 8? That's a lot of guys. A lot of guys that are nearing the end. And we don't want rapid fire retirements, but we're going to have to get some frequent retirements. And as long as, you can't control what AEW does, but in WWE, as long as they leave enough room in between for each one to breathe, you get a couple of months, in between. Like if AJ or Jericho retires at WrestleMania, then we give Brock retiring at SummerSlam, and then you have somebody else, maybe Ray retires at Survivor Series or something like that. You can, break it out, spread it out, but then you're going to have an entire year where nearly half of your PLEs are going to have retirement matches on them. So we will have to see how it's organized and how it plays out and how WWE handles it. But I actually don't look at this as a bad thing. I don't look at all these people retiring as a bad thing. I look at it as a good thing and look at it as an opportunity for WWE to make something memorable of these retirements. And I hope that they do. So we'll see if Brock winds up retiring next year or not. But if he does, then, good, because we didn't really want Brock back to begin with. And if he just comes back to wrap up his career and just work one final year and then lose on his way out the door as well, I'd be fine with that. No issue with that at all. So we will see what the plans are for Brock Lesnar. I was not home this past Monday to watch Monday Night Raw, but I did catch most of the show, but I don't want to talk about everything. We're only going to talk about a couple of the key points. Number one, the Usos are back together. They have made their case for the tag team titles, so I believe AJ and Dragon Lee will probably retain tonight. And the Usos, along with the New Day, all want a shot, but it looks like we could be seeing the Usos back on top of the tag team mountain, and that is fine with me. Just put Jay and Jimmy back together. That way we don't have to worry about Jay in the main events anymore, and we don't have to bitch about him. He can go back to tag teams, be dominant there, and have a good run, maybe rekindle a little bit of a feud or program with the New Day. Why not? So the Usos are back. They're going to be getting tag team title shot probably pretty soon. Also, Stephanie Vaquer had a promo, and she was interrupted by Nikki Bella, and then Nikki got attacked by Raquel Rodriguez. I don't know if this means Nikki's going back to being a babyface or not, but Raquel attacked her and then basically challenged Stephanie Vaquer to a title match as well. So Stephanie and Raquel Rodriguez are headed for a showdown. Rey Mysterio and Logan Paul are going at it. Rey was coming out to the ring. Logan Paul attacked him from behind. The two start brawling in the ring. Rey gets the upper hand, but the Masked Man made his first appearance of the night on Monday in that segment and came out and stomped Rey Mysterio, and then Logan Paul wound up knocking out Rey. We would see the Masked Man later on in the main event. It was Logan Paul versus LA Knight. Logan Paul beats him when the Masked Man reappears on the outside of the ring. LA Knight is doing something to Logan Paul on the announce table, and in comes the Masked Man, and he stomps LA Knight's head right on the announce table, allowing Logan Paul to get the win. So LA Knight is kind of helped to the back while Braun Breaker, then in the ring, cuts a promo on CM Punk, and he's vowing that on January 5th, that it's going to be Spear 1, 2, 3 on CM Punk. And he also says he wants the old CM Punk. So it's one of those promos, not my favorite. I want the old so-and-so back. We hear that way too many times. So apparently he wants the old Punk back, and he's vowing to absolutely destroy him on January 5th. Now, here's a thought I have. We also talked about last week how Braun Breaker is reportedly the whiteboard favorite to win the Royal Rumble. Well, how can he win the Royal Rumble if he's going to win the title on January 5th? I don't think he is going to win the title on January 5th. I think CM Punk should survive Braun Breaker, and then you have Braun Breaker win the Royal Rumble, and then maybe go on to challenge Roman Reigns if Roman Reigns winds up beating CM Punk for the title at the Royal Rumble, like I think he might. But if Punk is able to survive Breaker, how does he survive? Does he just beat him clean? No. Maybe the Masked Man. Maybe the Masked Man helps Punk inadvertently or something like that. I feel like the Masked Man could have an effect on the match. I know the Masked Man is with the Vision. At least that's the story they're telling. But something has got to happen in that January 5th match. So I was thinking maybe the Masked Man could screw up or whatnot, but I don't know. Or maybe the Masked Man could come out to stomp Punk and he moves, he stomps Breaker. I don't know. I'm thinking the Masked Man might have to be involved in that somehow. But if Punk survives, however he does survive, or whatever they do, booking that to allow him to survive, should, I think, further motivate Breaker to not only win the Rumble, but dominate in the Rumble, where he dominates. So if he survives CM Punk, then Punk could then maybe take the title into the Royal Rumble to face Roman Reigns, drop the title to Roman Reigns. Braun Breaker now wins the Royal Rumble. He's going to challenge Roman Reigns for that title, and then CM Punk can go into the Elimination Chamber in Chicago and win that and challenge Cody at WrestleMania. That's kind of how I'm hoping they do it. But right now, based on Breaker's promo on Raw, he's insistent that he's going to win that championship on January 5th. So if they don't belt up Braun Breaker on the 5th, I'm curious how they're going to book the match to keep the title on Punk, because that's the direction I think they're going in right now. So when Breaker is cutting his promo, Logan and Bronson Reed, they recognize that LA Knight is kind of coming to, so they go to the backstage area and attack him again, and then they drag him over to a car. This is very reminiscent of what they were doing with Reed and Braun Strowman months ago, right? They bring him to the parking deck, they lay LA Knight on the roof of a car, and then Breaker climbs up to a couple of storage or production crates or whatnot. Not Breaker, Bronson climbs up to a couple of production crates and delivers a tsunami on the roof of the car, denting it and essentially destroying LA Knight. It was very reminiscent as well of the Ricochet Braun Breaker segment on the car, which sent Ricochet packing to AEW. And apparently, I didn't watch Raw live on Monday, but a lot of fans thought that this was the final burial of LA Knight, and he might be leaving the company because they thought of the Ricochet situation. Well, when it happened to Ricochet, he left. So it must be the same thing with LA Knight, when it's not, because we learned about his contract extension not that long ago. He still has years left on his deal. Now, there's also been reports, I believe it was from WrestleVotes, but I don't want to quote them because I'm not exactly sure. But when some of the reports about LA Knight's status started coming out, number one, he's not leaving WWE. He's got multi-years left on his contract. WWE said that this is a standard story beat that they plan on revisiting here in the future. LA Knight might be off TV a couple of weeks selling this, but he's not going anywhere. He's not injured. He wasn't written off TV permanently. And apparently, he's going to be a heavy focus for 2026. And there are big things coming for LA Knight in 2026. But I don't believe that. I won't believe that until I see it. Because when these reports came out, the WWE's playing the long game with LA Knight and they got big plans for him next year, he ain't 25 years old. This guy is in his 40s. You don't have a whole lot of time to be playing the long game. You should have been playing the long game with him ever since he debuted in NXT when he was over. He's been over virtually the entire time he's been there, except for the cup of coffee he had to be Max Dupree for. But every other minute of his WWE run has been a good one. Fans have liked him. He's performed well. He's great. And the fans were really behind him over the past couple of years. Really rooting for him hard to win the Money in the Bank, and he didn't. Couple of title shots. Never won the title. Couple of opportunities to get more title shots. Didn't win. Losing in John Cena's final match tournament. Getting his ass kicked here and being owned by the Vision is starting to frustrate a lot of fans, and they were left scratching their heads on Monday, wondering what the hell all this means. And then WWE was shocked by the outrage of fans. Why are you shocked? Why aren't you pleased by that? If I'm WWE, I should be happy that the fans are furious about what happened to LA Knight, because that's just more proof that this guy is fucking over. So if they got big plans for him in 2026, or they actually want to put a world championship on him in 2026, that's fine. I just hope it's not too late. He's still in great shape, but he's older, and LA Knight's still very capable and all that. But I kind of feel like I wish they would have just started this process of making him a world champion 3 years ago, not right now. So I'm skeptical if this big push is really coming. Apparently, Finn Balor was supposed to get a big push a year ago. We never saw that either. So if this push for LA Knight is coming in 2026 and WWE is going to play the long game with him, okay, but he's been over. He's not going to get any more over. He's over as shit. Everybody wants to see this guy be crowned or become a world champion, and you guys just aren't doing it. So I'll believe it when I see it. But apparently everything is fine with LA Knight. He's not going anywhere, and he will be probably a big part of that Vision storyline going forward for the next few months. We'll have to see where that road takes him. Because if they're planning on waiting another year or something to crown him, then we're talking about LA Knight becoming world champion at the Saudi Arabia WrestleMania, which is in another year from now, and another year older for LA Knight. So we'll see if any of that happens. But Raw this past Monday was okay, and still more speculation on who the Masked Man is. Now, I'm not getting into this, the analyzation of who's under the hood, because obviously WWE's using a different person under the hood. What's the most recent example of this that we saw? Why can't I think of it? It feels like it's kind of recent. Was it like the MJF Devil stuff? Is that what it was? Like, basically, it feels like there's been something in recent history where there's been somebody under a mask, and we've been analyzing and looking at the body language and looking at the size, and but we know that it's not going to be the person who it's going to be. It's not going to be the person they're using under the mask. So there's really no point in trying to pause and freeze frame and analyze who this person might be. A lot of people on Monday night said whoever was under the mask resembled Montez Ford. We're expecting Austin Theory to be a part of this as well, so probably Theory was maybe used at Survivor Series, and then maybe Montez was used on Monday. We don't really know. I don't think that when the person finally reveals themselves that it's going to be Chris Jericho. I don't feel like he's the right fit for that. It might wind up being Austin Theory, which might be a letdown for some fans. Unless they want to really stretch this out for another 4 months, and it turns out to be Seth Rollins, who, this masked figure is delivering stomps to people. So maybe it's going to wind up being Seth, but it's probably going to be just a new member of the Vision, and, maybe Austin Theory is just who it's going to be. But the longer they drag this out, the longer they drag out the reveal, I think the more disappointed fans are going to be if it's going to be Austin Theory. So if it's Theory, they need to reveal this sooner rather than later. Where if this thing is stretched out for a few months, you can't reveal it to be Theory. Because by then fans are going to know, they're going to expect it, and you're going to drag it out for so long that they're going to be disappointed with the result. Where if you hit us with Theory right now, I don't think any fans would be disappointed, because we're kind of expecting him to be a part of this anyway. So it just depends on what WWE has planned for the Masked Man, but I'm not going to sit there and stare at it or try to analyze who might be under the mask, because whoever was under the mask on Monday ain't going to be the person who reveals themselves when it's time for the mask to finally come off. Maybe it's DDP. We'll see. Who do you guys think the masked guy is? Right now, I just think it's Theory, but the more and more they drag it on, the more and more I think they have some bigger reveal planned for that. We'll have to see. Last night's SmackDown, we'll talk about that real quick. We had a really good little face-to-face ahead of their big match tonight. NXT champion Obafemi went face-to-face with WWE champion Cody Rhodes last night on SmackDown. That was a fun little exchange, and let's hope that it's more of Obafemi on the main roster here soon, although he is currently the NXT champion. He just won back the belt from Ricky Saints, which I kind of didn't like because I was hoping he would come up to the main roster. Now he might be stuck in NXT for a little while longer, but this is still a big deal for him. He gets to wrestle the world champion on the show that John Cena retires on. I'll do my predictions in a minute, but it was a good little face-off between those two, and you can really see, how Oba is the few. When you think about Oba and Gunther and Breaker and some of the guys like that, maybe Oba Femi is the guy to retire Brock Lesnar. If Brock is going to need somebody to actually retire him, maybe it's not Gunther, maybe it's Oba, maybe it's Braun Breaker. There's a lot of guys that, are coming up that are big and tough and strong and could put down, a lot of these guys that are about to retire. So it was kind of cool to see their little face-to-face last night. Really enjoyed the Ilya Dragunov and Tommaso Ciampa match. Really great match. Bloody nose on Ilya. He's so intense. Everything he does, it just looks like he's in a war in every fucking match. I love him so much. Winds up getting the win. Gargano attacks after the match, and Mello comes out to make the save, so that's kind of nice. I saw an idea for the Royal Rumble that I absolutely loved. Make Ilya Dragunov and Gunther number 1 and 2 in the Rumble. I think that would be a tremendous idea. The only problem with that is that it would require WWE doing something really cool that the fans would really enjoy. And I don't like our chances. But it is a great idea. Gunther and Dragunov, number 1 and 2 in the Rumble. Talk about setting the tone for the Rumble. Holy shit. Putting those guys up there 1 and 2. Man, oh man. Also last night we had that mixed tag. Zelina Vega and Aleister Black losing to Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, as I predicted. I predicted that they would win they would win the mixed tag here, but then Aleister Black would win the blow-off. So I'm assuming that Black and Priest are probably set for one more match. Black will win that, and then hopefully they'll be done. Really scary moment in the ring last night. I think Zelina Vega was trying to execute a code red or something like that on Ripley, and it just did not go right. There was a miscommunication or something like that, and Zelina kind of like scorpioned a little bit. Ripley fell back and Zelina didn't tuck in time and she just fell right on her face and really kind of bending her back in an awkward way. She did finish the match. She appears to be okay. Hopefully there was no injury there and everything is okay with Zelina Vega. But she was pinned. I think it was Riptide from Rhea Ripley that did her in last night. And Ripley and Priest back together. The Terror Twins got the win over Black and Zelina last night. Also, Javon Evans defeated The Miz and Lash Legend defeated Alexa Bliss. That's pretty much all I'm going to mention on SmackDown last night because now it's time for Saturday night's main event predictions. But before we do that, let me just briefly touch on this past Wednesday's Dynamite Winter is Coming, which was in Cardiff, Wales, which I kind of forgot about. I watched it that night. I didn't do a review or plan on one. I actually laid on my bed and watched the show, and Dynamite was really good. First of all, we have brand new AEW Women's Tag Team Champions, the Babes of Wrath, defeated the Timeless Love Bombs in the finals of the AEW Women's Tag Team Title Tournament, and kind of a shock win there. Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron are your first ever AEW Women's Tag Team Champions. I thought for sure at the end of Blood and Guts that it was going to be Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. I thought the way that match ended was telling me that they're going to win the entire tournament. They got their own entrance now. They've got a team name. To me, all the signs were pointing to them winning the championship, and it turns out to be the Babes of Wrath instead. Harley Cameron got her mouth busted open a little bit. She couldn't really do the post-match interview, but really happy for them. Very happy for them. I love Willow, and pleasantly surprised with that upset there. I was expecting it to go the other way, but congrats to the Babes of Wrath, who are your inaugural AEW Women's Tag Team Champions. Also, Swerve, Strickland, and Hangman Page had a really fun tornado tag. They beat Shibata and Powerhouse Hobbs in that. They started out in the crowd with staple guns and everything. They were staple gunning each other in the audience. I'm glad no fans didn't get stapled in their heads by accident. So it was violent, it was fun, and it was a mess. As always, and I love the Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page dynamic. I love them together. We also had Continental Classic matches on Wednesday night. Okada defeated Jungle Jack Perry, And in an unbelievably fun match, my God, match of the week easily, and also a big upset. Speedball Mike Bailey defeated Kyle Fletcher. I watched every bit of this match. I was on the edge of my seat. 3 or 4 different times I thought it was over for a Kyle Fletcher victory, and the way Speedball was surviving, even surviving the brainbuster thing and all that and kicking out, the crowd was loving it. It was such a good match. Probably one of the better ones in recent history in those Continental Classics, and definitely match of the week in my mind was Speedball versus Kyle Fletcher. That was so fucking good on Wednesday, and a huge win for Speedball. Huge win for Speedball. Also, the main event at Winter is Coming was the great, or the match, I shouldn't say the great, but the match we were anticipating between Samoa Joe and Eddie Kingston. They set this up a couple of weeks ago. They had the face-off last week on Dynamite. The match was this past week on Dynamite in the main event, and Joe, as expected, did get the win here. Nobody was expecting Eddie Kingston to win the championship here. He got choked out, and Joe retained the title. So Dynamite was a pretty good show, crowned the inaugural Women's Tag Team Champions. Amazing Continental Classic match between Mike Bailey and Kyle Fletcher, and then, of course, Joe winning in the main event. Collision is going on right now. We've got, or it might be over by now. It's going on as we speak, or it just ended, I should say. I think it just ended. So I have not seen the results. But we have Claudio versus Takeshita in the Blue League. Kevin Knight versus Speedball Mike Bailey in the Gold League. We've got Swerve Strickland versus Josh Alexander. The Sisters of Sin versus Jamie Hayta and Chris Statlander. And Mark Briscoe defending his TNT title tonight against Daniel Garcia. That show has already happened, and it just aired, and I haven't seen the results, but that's what happened on Collision. And that leaves us with our Saturday night's main event predictions. Let's get into it here. We got 4 big matches coming up that goes live in an hour and 15 minutes. So it's almost time to watch Cena's final match. And apparently Jesse the Body Ventura is scheduled to be at Saturday night's main event. I'm not sure if that's confirmed, but that's what I saw. He might be there. I really hope the idiot-in-chief is not there. I do not want his presence hanging a dark cloud over this. I want this night to be special for Cena, special for the fans, special for pro wrestling. And the last thing we need is some distraction like that. So let's just hope he stays away and we get these matches off without a hitch. Now we have Javon Evans and, where's my... There we go. What's the feller's name? Yeah, Leon. Why couldn't I remember his name? It's Javon Evans and Leon Slater. How cool is that? These two guys getting a match on Saturday night's main event. They're going to be getting a tag team title match against AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. As much as I love Javon Evans, I love him so much. I love him in the same way I love Maxine Dupree. They just light up a room when they come in. And I like Leon Slater as well, but I think I like Javon Evans a little bit more. I do think they make a fun team. I think the match is going to be very, very entertaining, but in the end, I'm picking AJ Styles and Dragon Lee to defeat Javon and Leon, and I think it'll be Leon Slater probably eating the pin in that match if I had to guess. Bailey versus Sol Ruca. Bailey versus Sol Ruca. This is kind of a tough one, because you got so much going on with Bailey and the Kabukis and Lyra and whatnot. I could see a lot of interference here that would give Sol Ruca the win. Bailey just held that big workout camp in Florida, flying a bunch of wrestlers in to train and learn and stuff. She really seems to be into giving back. If you book this in a way with enough interference, I could totally see Sol Ruca getting the win over Bailey here, but I'm not sure what WWE's intentions are. Do they intend this to be like Fully Loaded 2000, where you give Angle and Benoit and Jericho big matches, but they all lose? Or is some of them going to win? I don't really know. I feel like I got to pick all the main roster stars here to win, because I don't think John Cena is going to have too much of an influence on these other matches, who wins or loses. So I think I'm going to go Bailey to beat Sol Ruca. And in the same way, I think I'm going to go Cody Rhodes to beat Obafemi. Now, the reason I'm doing that, I might pick Obafemi if Obafemi wouldn't have lost the NXT title. I think Ricky Saints beating Oba in a way kind of makes Cody beating him okay, if that makes any sense. Like, I almost think that Ricky Saints briefly won the NXT title from Oba specifically for this reason, just so fans, because fans all like Cody and stuff, but you can kind of see some of them kind of turning on him here. And if Cody were to win, if Oba had been going on this run, this unstoppable run, he's just kicking ass, and then he walks into Saturday night's main event and Cody beats him, even though it's not true, fans would say stuff like they buried him and all that because fans are predictable and stupid, and that's just what they would say. I think the loss to Saints makes a Cody victory here easier to swallow, meaning that you shouldn't feel like Oba was done wrong here. He lost to the top star in the company on a 4-match card that involves John Cena's last match. Obafemi is not being mistreated in that situation. If anything, it's the opposite. So since Ricky Saints already beat him for the title, I think that helps out a little bit in terms of how the fans might react, because I know how they are. I know how they can be, and they are as predictable as gravity. So I know some of the conversations that would be had if Cody just straight up beat Oba after Oba has been on this run. I think him losing the title to Saints a couple months ago or a few weeks ago, whenever that was, actually helped a little bit, and Cody can beat Obafemi. But if they want to shock us, if they want Obafemi, like I think about the match I talked about earlier, Kevin Owens' first main roster match in WWE at Elimination Chamber, 2015 or 16, where the fuck that was, 15, I think. And he beat John Cena, beat him in his first match, and that was such a shock. Didn't do any harm to John Cena. It was a statement maker for Kevin Owens. You could do that with Cody Rhodes and Obafemi. You could have Obafemi beat Cody Rhodes. You definitely could. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Cody Rhodes will beat Obafemi. I'm just looking for these matches to be good, for them to be memorable, and for them to showcase some talent that is definitely going to be a major part of the main roster in the probably immediate future. You're talking Sol Ruca, Javon Evans, and Obafemi. All three are going to be bona fide main roster members. We love Sol Ruca. My God, Sol Ruca. She's tremendous. Javon, I love. Oba, I love. And this is going to be kind of like their coming out party. They don't have to win here. I don't think it's a must. They got to win tonight. They can win. I don't care if they do. If Sol Ruca wins, great. If Obafemi wins, great. I just don't feel like they have to. They got to win. No, they don't. Stop saying that. I mean, they can, but they don't have to. Nobody's going to be damaged here tonight. Nobody's going to be buried. Nobody's career's going to be fucked with. WWE's not going to, there's really no wrong decisions you can make here in all these matches. I really don't think that there are. I think this is supposed to be meant as a fun night of wrestling, a positive night of wrestling, an emotional night of wrestling, to where there's not going to be so much second guessing about the booking. I don't think that's what this night needs to be about. It needs to be about the matches, and it needs to be about our farewell to John Cena, which brings us to our main event. John Cena versus Gunther in his final match. This is the final John Cena match that I'm ever going to predict. I hope I get it right. I'm predicting that Gunther beats John Cena. I am too nervous. I'm too chicken shit to predict a tap out. Now, Gunther is insisting that Cena will tap out, and that might be the story they want to tell, but I also think you can do a pass out. John Cena, if he wants to stay true to his t-shirt and all of his towels and his wristbands and all that never give up shit, then he needs to never give up. And Gunther can try as he might. No matter how hard he chokes John Cena is not going to say uncle. He's going to pass out a la Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. I don't know if I have a preference. Like I said, there's 3 big outcomes we could get. A John Cena tap out, a John Cena pass out, or a John Cena victory. And if we get any of those 3, I actually will be okay with it. Because like I said, we've got AJ Styles, Rey Mysterio, Chris Jericho, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, CM Punk, whole bunch of guys about to retire. If they want to make a legend killer or retirement gimmick with Gunther, I almost think it would be fitting if he retired everybody. But the one guy he couldn't do it to was John Cena. That would also fit in there. It would set John Cena apart. Where Gunther put down all these other guys, but John Cena, he could not get it done. Super Cena. Cena wins LOL prevails again. Might be one nice little final wink and nod to the wrestling audience. Cena wins LOL. And if that happens, the last thing Greg is going to be is angry, because that's stupid to get angry about that. So I'm fine with however the match goes, but I'm still going to predict Gunther. I still feel like that's the appropriate opponent, because if John Cena was just going to win his final match, he could have been in there against anybody. But Gunther, is a super heel, and John Cena is used to beating super heels. He beat Umaga, the Great Khali. Who else? Brock Lesnar. All those guys that John Cena's been put in the ring with when he seems so overmatched, and then he wins. So this could be one final little nod to the identity of John Cena and what he does in the ring, or he could tap out and do the one thing that he's never done. I don't know how the finish is going to go, but I'm going to predict Gunther. And if Gunther wins, what I'm expecting to happen, or at least what I hope happens, because the last thing I want to see, and I don't think it's going to go this way, the last thing I want to see is Gunther winning, and then Gunther being the last thing we see. Gunther is walking away as Cena is broken and defeated in the ring, and we get the lower thirds, we get the credits there with the Lee fitting and the Triple H, and the show goes off the air. I think Gunther is an asshole, but I'm hoping that Gunther shows some respect at the end. If he does tap out John Cena, or if he does pass out John Cena, I hope that Gunther gets out of the ring. Maybe Gunther even shakes his hand. Help me out. Did Gunther shake Goldberg's hand after that match? I can't remember if he did or not. So if Gunther, beats Cena, maybe he shows him a little bit of respect and then gets out of the ring. And I would really like it if everybody came out. Obviously, Triple H is probably going to be the front and say, he'll probably be out there on the mic mumbling in his throaty voice, all his shit that he's got to say. But we don't need Triple H. He can be out there. I don't want him on the mic. I just want him out there, everybody out there. Triple H leads the charge. Come on, the entire roster lines the ring, just like Ric Flair in 2008 when he had a send-off on Monday Night Raw. Everybody comes out. John Cena says a few words on the mic. The crowd appreciates it. John Cena says goodbye, and we get this big emotional moment. I don't want it to be a letdown. I don't want it to be like what Goldberg did. I don't want it to abruptly go off the air when we think something else is going to happen. I'm hoping that John Cena is able to say a few words and deliver a message to the crowd before it's all over and before it's all said and done, and the show officially goes off the air, that we get some sort of a goodbye from John Cena. That's what I want to see tonight. And I'm really bummed out that I'm not going to be home to witness that in person. I'm going to have to work, but I will be home tonight. As soon as I get home, I'll have some dinner. I'll plop down. We'll fire up Saturday night's main event. Elizabeth and I will watch it, and then I'll be up here tomorrow afternoon at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific for my full Saturday night's main event review. So just to recap, I got AJ and Dragon retaining the tags. I've got Bailey over Sol Ruca, Cody over Obafemi, and Gunther over John Cena on tonight's Saturday night's main event. If you guys are watching the show live, I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's great. I hope it gives you everything that you want. And I'll be thinking of you as you go through the emotions of what you're going to be watching tonight. And I really wish I was watching it with you. I really wish we were up here watching it live. But unfortunately, duty calls, and I'm not able to be here this evening. All right, that's pretty much the end of my notes. Let's finish off the super chats and see what you guys are talking about in the chat here. Let me just refresh, get back to where I was. Just want to make sure I don't miss any. There we go. All right. I want to thank Ryan Adams for 10 more. Excuse me. For a man that never lost, he lost at SummerSlam for 6 years in a row. 2011, Punk. 2012, Punk and Big Show. 13 to Bryan, 14 to Brock, 15 to Rollins, and 16 to Styles. Yeah, John Cena did lose a lot. I remember talking about that. 15 was the year when Jon Stewart got involved, right, with Rollins. And 14, of course, he was squashed by Brock. Bryan beat him clean. That was when Cena had like the injury to his elbow, and then Orton cashed in right at 13 or in 2013. And then Punk and Big Show in 2012. I forgot that was a 3-way. Yeah, but I guess it was. Crazy. Yeah, he's John Cena's lost plenty of matches. I mean, he's a 17-time world champion, which means he's lost the title 16 times, doesn't it? Or 17 times. Oh, thank you. Okay, I forgot about that. So I don't even remember that. We Are Pro Wrestling. He's saying that in WrestleMania 35, John Cena brought back the Thuganomics character and did a segment with Elias. It's deleted. I don't even have it in there. If I try to locate it, I can't even picture it. I have no recollection of that happening. And I watched it live with a watch along and did a review on it that night. Don't remember. That's funny. I don't remember that. That's so crazy. Hey, Odyssey Videos. How long have I been on? We've been going exactly 2 hours at this point. We're about to sign off right now because I got to head to work, and you guys got to watch Saturday night's main event. It starts in 1 hour. Get you ready. Get your tissues ready. For crying, not for the other thing. Glizzy Bob, thank you for the $5. I really hope they let Cena go over tonight, and if he pushes to lose, I hope they overrule him and say, no, you're winning. Gunther will be fine. I agree. Gunther will be perfectly fine. And John Cena has said that he just does what they tell him. So if they insist, and that's what I talked about earlier, WWE, he's their character. They might want this not just for John Cena's legacy, but for theirs. They might say, no, we want you to be remembered as the guy who won his last match. That's just what we want for you. We want that to be your legacy. Because when we erect statues in your honor and all that stuff that we're going to do for you and your memory in later years, we want that final match being in the record books as a victory. And if they're adamant about that, then Cena will probably say, okay. I mean, Gunther might come up to him, no, Cena, I want you to win. I can't do Gunther's accent. Then Cena will do it. I'm sure Cena will be, okay, I will. Because it would be a fitting end for Cena kind of either way. If he taps out or if he wins, I can see both. You can make a case that both outcomes are perfect for the end of John Cena. I think that's why I'm going to probably, I mean, we're not going to know until we see it, but I find it very unlikely that I'm going to have a huge issue with the way tonight's match goes because I just want it to be memorable. That's all. All right. Oh, look at all these text messages. People want me. All right. Is there any other things I need to answer here before we get out of here? Natalya. Yes, Natalya is also probably going to retire. And so if they want to book, I mean, I guess they could book Natalya versus Gunther. It might be a crown jewel match. Probably crown jewel. I think Gunther squashing Natalya and retiring her in Saudi Arabia. Intergender match in Saudi. Yeah, that's what I would book. I would book Gunther to retire Natalya in Saudi Arabia next year or the year after. That's the way I'd do it. Good to see Max, Daniel Clark, Jake, the original tribal chief. Lots of people chiming in. Jeff, Glizzy Bob, Jacob A. Super Fluffy Toaster. A lot of people saying hello who came in the last hour or so. Exactly, John Cena. If John Cena does, or Shell Shock, if John Cena does win tonight and people debate it and say, oh, I don't know if that was the right way or if that was the right call, your reply should be, he's John Cena. He's winning tonight because he's John Cena. So, unfortunately, if Cena wins, I do think that would cause debates. I don't think we're going to get quite as many debates if Cena loses because that feels more appropriate. But if he does win, as long as WWE feels that having Cena win, the debates that might spark doesn't overshadow or even ruin his retirement, then I'm fine with a John Cena win. But if he wins in such a way to where the fans aren't even talking about his retirement, they're just too busy bitching about him winning, then that's not going to do John Cena any favors either for his legacy or for the company's legacy. So the outcome needs to be well thought out and make sure it's really what you want to do. And I think Gunther winning is what they should do. But I've always had Cena's back, and if he won, I wouldn't complain. I'd be fine with it. Max, I couldn't stand John Cena, and even now I still acknowledge that there were some matches that he should have lost, but I'm proud of the work he put in and what he gave to the business, and that's what it's all about. It's about his contributions. All of those years with very few injuries, with no time off for rehab or jail or wellness violations. How many times have John Cena been suspended for wellness policy violations? 0. Guy never did anything. Never got any trouble. It was fine. Randy Orton famously had so many strikes on him. He was supposed to be fired and wasn't. John Cena just always kept his shit together, and he gave everything he could to wrestling, and that's all you can really ask for. But yeah, that's the thing, Max. You couldn't stand Cena back in the day, and even now you still acknowledge that there were some matches that he should have lost. We all do. I've never not felt that way, even at the time when John Cena was winning these matches. He probably should have lost that one, but it didn't throw me into a psychotic rage where I wanted the guy dead. Looking back, I still feel the same way. He should have lost that one. He should have lost to the Nexus or whatever. And there's a couple of other examples of matches where okay, did he really need to win that one? There are definitely examples like that exist, but none of that, is strong enough to completely flip my opinion on the guy. I'm looking at his overall body of work and what he contributed to wrestling. And it's somebody my age who's seen all of the greats during every era from every promotion and every time period. It's nice and refreshing to see a guy like John Cena who wasn't a piece of shit, because so many people who dominated the industry were pieces of shit, or they were just trashy people, or drug addicts, or alcoholics, or constantly getting in trouble, domestic violence, multiple divorces, all sorts of crap, fathering kids all over the fucking world, or maybe being a murderer, or committing crimes, or throwing fucking bricks through McDonald's windows, or anything like that you hear about. John Cena was just a respectable guy and a respectable champion, and that's what I respected him for. The business needed him. We needed a Cena. We needed somebody that carried themselves in the way that Cena did, and then Cena branched off, much like The Rock did, and went and made himself a movie career. And I think as wrestling fans, we should be proud of that. When we see people like The Rock and Brock Lesnar and John Cena and even Chris Jericho and others go out into the world of entertainment beyond pro wrestling and succeed, that should make us proud as wrestling fans. We should be proud of that somebody from our world went and achieved heights that great. Proud of him. Proud of you, John Cena. Thank you for an amazing 23 years. I got to get out of here, guys, and head to work. I hope you enjoy Saturday night's main event. I hope it gives you everything you want, and I hope it gives you everything you're looking for. Please feel free to keep me updated on social media. Tag me on Twitter @GoodMicWork. Hey, Greg, did you see this or did you see that? I'm going to try to eyeball the show as best I can while I'm there, and then I'll come home tonight and watch it in its entirety. And we'll be up here tomorrow afternoon, like I said, to review the whole thing. So this is it. This is the last time we do a stream. This is the last time we are live together with John Cena being an active pro wrestler. We are just a couple of hours away from a 23-year chapter coming to a close. It's a long time. It's a long time. You guys enjoyed the show tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out this afternoon, and make sure you join us tomorrow afternoon, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. We will be here to talk all about it. Thank you, John Cena. Peace.